good morning or good afternoon. This is a Cellar stream today. Figured we'd mix it up a little bit. We're doing some good stuff in the wine cellar where I work. I'm a cellar master at a New Jersey winery. So I wanted to we're doing some interesting things today that require a little bit of downtime on my part. So I have some opportunity to kind of walk some folks through what we're doing. So what we're doing today is we brought in some cranberries that we had in frozen storage last week. We processed it on Friday, and it came in, we processed it, it was about half unfrozen. So we're currently in the process of heating that up. So this is a 1,000-liter tank, which is a healthy amount of wine. Like that would still be maybe about a pallet's worth, maybe even a little bit more if that was all we were doing. But we're heating this up progressively to homogenize the temperature of this big boy. So this is full, probably, if you can see this weld right here, it's full to about there of cranberry must. So we processed that and added about, I would say, I think we added about exactly 350 gallons of hot water at about 160, 170 degrees. So, even the fact that we processed it with that degree of hot water, it's still very cold. So we can't, at this point in time, add yeast. So I can kind of feel around, it's not too bad up here because heat rises obviously. So this is kind of around where the must stops. But as I go further, it gets very cold to the touch. And the further down you go, it's even colder. It's a little warm down here because yesterday I already did this process. I heated up a pretty full tank to about 110 degrees and pumped it back in to the bottom valve where I drew it from also today. But today we're gonna do it a little differently. Today, instead of pumping back to the bottom valve, you can see the hose. You can see the hose, you can see it. That one. We're pumping it back over top. So I slowly wanna homogenize that so we can get the whole thing to about 60 or so degrees. You can see right where we're at. That's a little, I guess for our purposes, it's about exactly halfway on the tank. The temperature probe is currently reading at about 38 degrees, which isn't good enough for adding yeast. The yeast will die, and we don't want that, because then we'd have to add it again. So I need that to raise about another 25 degrees. In terms, everything in here has to be in the 60s before I can add yeast and nutrient to make sure that the fermentation process happens. We also need to add a lot of sugar as well. Cranberries don't have a lot of natural sugar. It's the steamer's outgassing. Cranberries don't have a lot of natural sugar or even a lot of water to them. So processing, if you just process straight up like cranberries, it's gonna be very thick and it's gonna be very tart. Not even that it's super acidic, just the type of acidity cranberries have stand out a lot to us. So it's not like the same as a regular grape wine. So like the same exact pH for a grape wine or a cranberry wine, the cranberry is gonna seem way more tart. So what we're doing, how we're getting this up to temperature, is I have this plate here and you can kind of see there's a little pathway. So the steamer, I'll show you the steamer in a second. The steamer comes in through here and pushes steam at about, I think right now it's pushing at about 50 PSI. So it's a pretty heavy duty girl, and goes down through there and goes kind of a pathway. It's kind of like a loop-de-loo. And then the steam in water form, hot water form, exhausts at that end. So we're heating up this progressively, and over the course of time, every couple minutes or so, I like to homogenize this and stir it up So you can see the consistency of this. This was pretty warm when I started, because this is pretty much what I was heating up yesterday and pumped back into the tank. See that? So at this point, it's getting kind of stewy, which is good, because that's it's going to make it easier for the yeast to travel that way. Hold on. There we go. So have our handy dandy thermometer. Turn on. Hey. And we're going to kind of pop that in and see where we're at. I already read it at about, I think a couple minutes ago. It was okay. Yeah, it was in the mid 70s about 10-15 minutes ago. So we're at almost 85 degrees Fahrenheit. Ideally, and I want to do this twice today, if possible. I do have to leave a little bit early today. I have to pick up a keyboard from the shop. So I want that, after mixing it up, because I want a homogenized temperature. I want this at about 110 degrees would be ideal. If we kind of start running a little close on time, I might just pump this back early just so I can get another one going. So this is going to be fairly warm, and we're going to pump it over the top of the tank so that I can pull from the bottom, warm it up, get that warm so that it's kind of slowly. I want everything to kind of meet from the bottom and the top. So I'm going to pull from the bottom again, pump back into the bottom the second time so that slowly we're meeting in the middle, and then that little temperature gauge is going to read the temperature I want. So then I can inoculate it. So that's what we're doing today. That's not the only thing I'm doing today, though. So I'm also working on a trial. I have to get 3 bottles ready of some Viognier. So it turned out really well. Our white wines, so Viognier is a white wine. It's a very popular one for us. This is our 2024. So we harvested this. I want to say we harvested that probably about first or second week of September. So it came in, the white wines came in, they're a little low acid this year, so we added what we could, and they're tasting good, they're in good shape, but the Viognier is what we call phenolic, so it is a touch bitter, so we are adding some polycacel, which is a fining agent. I believe it is a mixture of 3 different fining agents, so it kind of is a little bit of a multiplex. So I'm working on a blending trial to see if adding this to the entire wine is beneficial and gets us the results we want. Because if it doesn't, we're not going to add it, and it is what it is, or we'll try something else. But this is a blend of 3 different things that are pretty popular. We might buy one of the more popular ones for white wine and rosé. If the wine's a little bitter to the taste or has like a little something kind of on the back end like you would having like a red wine, that's acceptable for a red wine. White wine, rosés, people don't really like that as much, depending. There are places where that's fine. But there's a milk protein called casein that we would add. So if the polycacel, AKA non-monogamous Sam Cassell, we'll add a little bit of that. So if that works, we have enough of it for that size tank. It wouldn't require a lot. It would be like maybe about, like we're talking like 1 to 2 parts per million, but like for the effect it would have on the wine, it would make a very noticeable difference for quite a small amount of addition. So I am marking everything accordingly. So I'm making a control, and we're adding 1 milliliter of the polycacel and then 2 milliliters of the polycacel. And then we'll taste it. You can taste it blind. Plenty of people do that. We don't necessarily. We all kind of taste together and trust what you like is the proper one, and we don't get too invested in, I'm a little slower to add things to wine. I come from, I got my start in Oregon, where generally they're looking to not add quite as much if you don't need to. So that's kind of the school of thinking I'm from. But, if it needs it, it needs it. But I I don't get too wrapped up into that. There's certain people that do enjoy not adding anything to wine ever and calling it natural. But usually that works. Sometimes that works out okay. Sometimes it kind of turns the wine into vinegar. So you do have to intervene for the health and happiness of the wine, because if the wine's healthy and happy, the people drinking it are going to be significantly happier, and then they'll probably buy your wine again. So we're going to get polycast. So yeah, we're adding 1 milliliter to this one. This is our control, 24 Viognier. Yeah, Viognier is really tasty. Generally, Viognier is, if it's not a single varietal wine, it's added to blends, mostly to white wine, but even in some parts of France, they'll add Viognier to red wines, mostly in southeastern France. They'll add that to add aromatics. It's a very aromatic flavor of wine. We'll get that going, plus 2 milliliters. Yeah, so we got the control, plus 1 mil, plus 2 mil. It's a pretty normal add. We already tried fixing the phenolic issue of the Viognier with egg whites, but it didn't help. Egg whites are generally used to like calm down tannins for red wines, but we wanted to see if it would be effective for the white wines. Didn't really make much of a difference. It definitely changed the wine a little bit, but it stripped the mid palate. We're trying to adjust what's on kind of the back end or the finish of the wine, and we noticed it did kind of soften or strip depending on your point of view for the mid palate of the Viognier, but it didn't really help what we were trying to address. And honestly, it stripped out the mid palate enough that we would have had to have added a second thing to counterbalance what the egg whites would have done. And obviously, there's also a consideration, depending on, knowing your own audience. Oh, that got splashy. If you feel your customer base likes a more, or generally more vegan, or thing along those lines, milk protein like casein or egg whites, some people have an issue with treating their wine that way. But we feel our clientele doesn't really mind that much. These are folks that, even if diet-wise, maybe they're vegan. We don't really have a lot of people overly concerned about use of animal products like an egg and extracted protein from milk. They're not that worried about it. So again, homogenizing this again, get all good temperatures. Just a nice little plunger. In lieu of using a stirring stick, we just do that, and this is how we'll just kind of make everything read similarly. We would use this if we were adding products, we were adding sugar or any other sort of fining agent, or if we're adding sulfur or really adding anything like that. For a tank this size, we would just use the plunger. Bigger tanks like number 10 or number 1, or even any of these, honestly. Bigger tanks, you would probably use a pump to circulate. But honestly, we don't even really want to use pumps too much with this process anyhow, because you can kind of see there's solids in there. Like these are cranberries. No pump enjoys moving solids. And this tank, or this pump, it's a small impeller pump. In here, we have paddles that kind of move. So I was pulling from the bottom valve there into the bottom valve of the tank. At first, because for the most part, like cranberries like to float. I mean, that's kind of how they're harvested. So there was some liquid on the bottom for probably a majority of the tank. Hold on. So I got up to about here before the pump really started chugging, and it was moving really slow or moving really fast, and then the more solids got into it, it really slowed down almost to a crawl. And at that point, I'll just cut it off. So this is further than I got yesterday. I was about 6 inches short of the top of this. You don't want to go over this because this is the heating element. So you're not really doing anything once it's past that point anyway. So this actually wound up being kind of perfect. So, but yeah, this is the steamer. This is how we're doing that. Even with the valve wide open. So it feeds right into there. This runs off of 3-phase power. That's the black cord right there is the 3-phase power. And it feeds off of just regular water. But even with the valve's been wide open for about pretty close to an hour at this point. You know, it's still steadily pushing about 50 PSI. So this is a heavy duty piece of equipment. So like you really have to make sure when you're messing around with three-phase wires, put it in an area that no one's gonna mess with it, run it over with anything, even like something as simple as a pallet jack or anything like that. Like definitely not a forklift, because if this is plugged in to 3-phase power and actively running and you run it over with something, you're gonna have a bad day. You're gonna ruin the power supply for one, and if you are connected to the circuit that's going through an active 3-phase wire, you're gonna have a bad day. So that's kind of what we're getting up to today. Actually, I forgot to take the temperature on this, so let me stir it up again, Bob Marley style. I usually try to target that little portion right there so it doesn't all get stuck. We don't want it to get too warm. We're not really trying to boil it per se. We're just trying to get, you know, about 110 degrees, 120 degrees, just something to heat up the portions that are still frozen or pretty close to it. So turn that back on again. So last time I think we were at about 85, and that was, what was that, about maybe 8-9 minutes ago. So let's see. Yeah. So a little less than 10 minutes or so, and we're already up 3 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's progress. Takes a long time, but I mean, this is a 1,000-liter tank. So like imagine, you know, if you don't have, ooh, I should put a cover on that. We're big braining today. I always forget to put a cover on this because that'll make it heat up faster. Hey, Chris. Welcome in, my friend. How are you doing today? I just figured no one else was on today, so I figured why not just, you know, I'm doing some stuff. We're making cranberry wine. So I'm heating up some cranberries. We freeze them. So cranberries are about ready the same time as our wine grapes are ready. And we don't really have the tank space to process everything at the same time in the fall. So we put it in a freezer storage, generally used for like farms and stuff, but we're also a farm, so it's the same thing. And we just kind of process it when we have time for it. But how's your day going? Just doing a little co-working stream because heating this up takes a long time and I get bored and I don't have anybody to talk to. So we're gonna put that. Yeah, this is the winery I work at. So whenever I'm talking about work or what I do for work, yeah, this is the place. So it's a little winery in South Jersey, Bellevue Winery. So we make different types of fruit wines, grape wines, good variety for a good selection of folks. So we're just heating that up. So this is a 1,000-liter tank. I'm heating this up to pump it back into this big tank. So the thermometer in the middle of the tank says it's reading at about 38 degrees. I need it at about 60. I need it at least 60 degrees. Everything in here has to be about 60 before I can add yeast and nutrients to start the fermentation. And then I'll start adding sugar and things along those lines. But if I add yeast to it and the must is about 40 degrees, the yeast is gonna die. So we don't want that because then I'll have to do it again. And that's a waste of time because I have plenty to do today. So I'm also doing, I was going through this a few minutes ago. I'm also doing a trial Love the Bob Marley reference. Hey Jay, welcome in. We love a lurk around here. I mean, I kind of consider this a co-working stream of sorts. So I think if you're just working or you're just bopping around, you're studying. I mean, we're just kind of doing the same thing here. So I'm setting up a bench trial for some white wine. It's a little phenolic. I would say astringent. I wouldn't say bitter. It's a little astringent on the back end of it, on the finish. So we're going to add this fining element. It's still rehydrating. I got that. I added it to some warm water and stirred it up about a half hour ago. It needs about another half hour before I can add it. And then, if you've seen my iced coffee emote, it's not a gimmick. I live this life. I did not choose cold brew life. Cold brew life chose me. But yeah. That's my life juice. Keeps me going. Yeah, so I'm setting up the bench trial, warming up the cranberry juice. I'm gonna do that a second time today with this big boy steamer right here. I'm actually pretty used to this. Every winery I've had has a steamer it's this brand. It's Swash. It's Electro Steam. That's real. Yeah. Yo, I've worked a lot of jobs. And most of them I generally kind of get bored after about a year and a half. Wine's the only job I've never gotten bored. Every day is a little different, and it's just really interesting to me. There's just so much to it. It's not just like if the making wine gets you bored, wine is also food, it's science, it's farming. You see, this is the farm. At this point, we're on a fifth generation farm, family owned. So you can kind of see can I zoom? I cannot zoom. Well, I can get this far without really losing signal, but you can kind of see we have the vineyards off in the distance. Oh, not that far, and we have the rootstocks right here. So we're on a family-owned farm. Scott's actually the fifth generation. This used to be produce farm. I think they grew some fruit as well. But yeah, so this is the crush pad. It's busy season for us in the tasting room. So we have some stuff we have glasses and carafes out here. That's they just have to go somewhere. But that's not this one. Yay. But yeah, I have screw press. This is what we processed the cranberries in. We dump them into here from that big hopper. So the hopper fed it in to the screw press. We added hot water along to kind of keep it moving because it's frozen and kind of clumps together. We pump it with a 3-inch hose into the tank, the big tank that I was showing y'all earlier. And then we have, it's a filter. That's a plate and flame filter. So when we get closer to bottling, it'll go through there. I've set that up. This is a 2-stage filtration. Most of our movements would be 1-stage filtration. So we would do like a coarse and then go to a fine filter on the back end as we get ready for bottling. So it'd be considered a sterile filter. But this was, what was this? Oh, this was a Merlot. This was a Merlot blend. So we got that. Had to do that in one shot because they wanted to bottle the next day. So I had to do both at the same time. You can do it. Honestly, it's a little easier. It's less set up that way. And then this is the bottling machine. This is what we would call a semi-automatic bottler. So you plug this in. This is also powered by 3-phase power. It has 12 spigots, and the carousel kind of spins, so you can kind of add and pull as the bottles are full. It fills in. We use a pump to fill in from the bottom, and it fills up this bowl, and you get enough head pressure in there that the bottles fill semi-automatically. And then you just and then you cork them, and then you fill the box and put it away. So, but then we have some barrels out here. I had to, that blend I was telling you about that I had to filter, I pulled from these 2 barrels, which I had to rinse out, and they're currently on sulfur. That's why they're wrapped, because sulfur does not like plastic. So those are considered in storage. Actually, I should erase those. And those are 2 full barrels that need to get moved together, because you can't, moving a lopsided barrel, if it's empty and full, it's a little tricky to move. And then someone came in earlier today, first thing, and bought some wine from us. So I have a tank that is fairly empty, and I have to move the remaining wine to this one. I took it upon myself when I started here in September to number the tanks, because none of the tanks were numbered, and referring to them was a little tricky. So I took it upon myself to start naming the wines, or naming the tanks. So I have to clean this. It's a little dirty. That's not acceptable to put clean wine into. So probably after I end stream here, I'll clean that and get it chem clean. So I have Sterox, which is kind of a caustic agent. It's fairly similar to soda ash or P-carb if anybody uses things like that. And then that's just neutralized with citric acid and then rinsed away with water. So we're probably ready to give this another stir skis. Where should I put that? Yeah, so this is a reasonably full day for me, but I have a lot of labs to do later in the week, so I'm pulling from every barrel lot in every tank. So I'm gonna check the pHs, sulfurs, check the sulfur levels. You do want some sulfur in your wine, depending on the pH level, just to make sure that they're microbially stable. And we're talking and it depends on your pH. If your pH is really low, it's like a high acid wine, you don't need to add as much sulfur. So if you or someone you know that enjoys wine but has concerns about sulfur, generally wines that are more tart and more acidic, you don't need to add as much. So if you like a Sauvignon Blanc, a Pinot Grigio, something along those lines, and you want to avoid sulfur, any sulfur, higher acid wines are the way to go. But even like wines, even like reds that are lower acid, pretty naturally, like a Syrah or a Cabernet, like even those are still only like at maximum, you're talking sulfur wise, we're adding like 40 parts per million. Like it's not a lot. Like legitimately there's more sulfur in a salad bar or in like dried fruits, like, dried apricots are full of sulfur, like, way more than a wine has. So, but it's something we monitor very closely. You don't need to over add. There's no benefit to it. And there is an achievable point where it is sensorily detected. And at that point, then you just have wine that tastes like sulfur, and no one's going to buy that. So I'll just keep that going. See how that is. So it was just at 88 a couple of minutes ago, I guess about 8 or 10. Usually you want to stir this about every 5 minutes or so it's not getting too stagnant. Yeah, hold the sulfur. Yeah, we really, I'm not going to speak for higher volume wineries because, you got to do what you got to do when you're working at a certain volume, but we only make about 10,000 cases a year. So that's not, okay, cool. So we're on a steady climb. So I'll get this to about 110 degrees and then I'll pump that back over the top. So I can just kind of slowly get this up to the temperature that I want it at. But yeah, that's good progress. Again, this keeps me going. I get a little bit. Oh yeah. Strike the pose. But yeah. Jay, what are you getting up to today? What's your day looking like? You working, studying, just chilling? Oh boy. Working on some spreadsheets, nice. Yeah, that'll be me tomorrow. I have a lot of lab work to do, so pretty much anything in barrel. This is part 1 of our barrel farm. So, and I have the 2 reefers actually. We won't go in the reefers because they're just where the signal gets a little wonky. But we have those 2 reefers right there are climate controlled-ish, and we have more barrels in there as well. So yeah, I'm gonna start everything in here that contains wine on Wednesday and Thursday. I'm pulling samples and I'm running chemistries on them just to make sure everyth's where I want it to be. And if it's not where I want it to be, then we have to make adjustments. So yeah, so step 1 right now with the cranberries, because it comes from the freezer, get it warm, add sorry, it's a little loud and clanky. This is awesome, bringing me back to Mr. Rogers field trips. Yeah, the how it's made. Oh, I love those. There's. I wish I remember the name of the channel. There's some ones that like do deep dives on how it's made, and it's like taffy or like the gummy ring, the gummy worms and stuff like that. They get real into that. I'm always really fascinated with that stuff. I actually have to not get too deep into it, because then I'll just be like, well, how do I make gummy worms? Even though I can't even really eat candy. But yeah, so we're gonna get this up to temperature. I'm gonna add the yeast when this is when it's warm enough to do that. I have nutrients I'll add at the same time as the yeast, and then I'll monitor every morning when I come in. I'm gonna monitor the temperature of the sample and the specific gravity or the bricks. So specific gravity is going to be higher the more sugar is in the must. Oh, also we'll need to add a lot of sugar. So I'll need to actually do this again. We'll need to do this again. I'll need to pull from the bottom and add all the sugar we're going to need just to make the alcohol, because converting sugar is how you get alcohol, and cranberries don't naturally have a lot. They actually have naturally very little. And so we'll need to add a pretty good amount just to get we're shooting for about 11-12% alcohol by volume. And that requires adding a good amount of sugar, but that converts into alcohol. That doesn't have anything to do with the sweetness of the final beverage. That'll be added closer to bottling time. So we just get that to where it's going. I have to add some potassium carbonate, I believe. Is going to make an adjustment to the pH, so it's going to make it microbially stable, and then we're going to make it, and then it's just going to kind of chill, probably in one of these tanks, one of the big ones. Actually, I'm right here. I might as well just get you the overview. I can always just farm this for clips or whatever later. So this is the ceiling. This is a pretty one. So I'm going to be pumping back over to this. Can I engage? I can't engage the flashlight. But yeah, this is the tank. This is the tank room, production floor. That's my desk. There's my coffee. You can kind of see it. Wish I could drink it. We have some. You see the open top tanks are variable capacity. The lids are inside of those. You don't want airspace. We call it ullage. You don't want oxygen exposure to your wine, especially grape wine. Grape wine is very prone to oxidation, and it creates off flavors, and it's not enjoyable. So if you have a certain amount of wine that won't fill a fixed capacity tank, like these, or the ones on the far end, 5 seconds away from your coffee is 5 seconds too long. You are not lying. But yeah, so you can kind of see, actually, here, you can see the top of the Chamberson tank on the far end. See that lid right there? So we drop the lid until it is floating on top of the wine, and then we inflate it to make it airtight. So we do that just to make sure that there's no oxygen exposure. Then we have some storage for the smaller tanks out there. During colder weather months, we might keep certain wines, certain small tanks of wine outside. Actually, we have a couple outside right now. So like when it's, gets kind of like 40, 30 degrees-ish overnight, not necessarily freezing, we like to leave wines that want to drop crystallized acid. Tartaric acid will crystallize, and doing that while it's in the tank makes it more cold stable, so that you can put the wine in your fridge without the crystals forming in your bottle. So we try to make sure that it's got all of that out of its system before we bottle, and that it's considered cold stable, so that you can pour a bottle of wine start to finish and not have any floaties, any floating stray proteins or any crystals in there, so that you have a pleasant drinking experience. But yeah, so we make a lot of, we make about 10,000 cases a year. So interesting. I agree. Like I just mentioned, I get bored very easily. I'm very restless. There is a personality test on, I believe it's called positiveintelligence.com, about what your saboteur trait is. And my number one by a wide margin is restlessness. So like I delivered mail for 4 years. I got bored of that. Retail I got bored of. Wine I still haven't gotten bored of it yet. There's just so much to it. And then there's customer service. It's the history of our society. Like we used wine to clean, wine was water treatment for our civilization, early parts of our civilization, before water treatment really formally existed. How long? In production, full-time, I would say, I've been doing this full-time for about 3 years. I did my first harvest in 2014, second harvest in 2017, and then I started in wine retail. So I started on the store level, and I did that for a little while, and then I just did a harvest upon the recommendation of some other folks in 2014, and I very quickly realized, oh, this is what I should have been doing my entire life. And then just the deeper I got into it, the more I liked it. It was just one of those things, and it's just like, okay, well, this is what I'm doing now. So I came up with a plan. I went to Oregon for a while, got a degree, so that I'm a little bit more viable as a professional. And yeah, so I'm 3 years full-time. So I do production. I also was doing a little bit of tasting room as well. You make better money in the tasting room. But yeah, I enjoy it a lot. It's the easiest I've ever gotten out of bed in the morning for any job. Gives me a purpose, kind of keeps me moving, and that's really what I need. I'm kind of a goal-driven person. So let's see. Mix this up. I'm gonna have to get started on cleaning that tank pretty soon. So I'm gonna see where this is. I'm running out of stuff to yap about. Not so stagnant too, you're experimenting. Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, I'm always moving around. Where's the button? Button. There we go. All right, so now we're at about, okay, so we're at 94 degrees. So we're pretty close to where I wanna be. The way things are going, I'm probably gonna keep doing this, eat lunch in probably about an hour or so. And then after I finish lunch, I'll probably pump that back over top. And then I'll pull from the bottom again, do it again. And yeah, whatever temperature it's at by 3:30 my time that's just gonna be what it is, because I have to leave early today. A little early, about an hour early. I have to go to Philly. I have a synthesizer that's ready for being picked up. So gotta do that, because I have to make an appointment to do it. Yeah, so this is my, get a better idea of the work desk, all the chemicals and supplies I have. So it's the Sterox, that's my go-to cleaning solution. Got some potassium metabisulfite, that's our sulfur. That's some different cleaning chemicals. This is not as tidy as I generally like it, but it's been a pretty busy week. And this is our parts board, which is a little bare. Because I am currently cleaning them, and they're sitting in solution. But yeah, so I think that's about the gist of it. So I am going to get to cleaning that tank I need to move this wine over here. So this was at the beginning of the day. I would say is probably filled to about there, and then someone from another winery came in and bought about 250 gallons. So now we're actually partway under the door line. So I can't actually, I can't drop the lid fully. I dropped the lid about here. That's as far as I could make it go. But again, like I mentioned before, you don't want to keep your wine on ullage space, because that's just going to be exposure to oxygen, and you don't want that. Wine does like a little bit of oxygen, not a lot though. Like, it's not like wine in barrels gets micro-oxidated. They call it micro-oxidative. Micro-oxidative exchange. So the pores, particularly, you can do American oak, French oak, Hungarian oak. Generally, people prefer Hungarian or French oak. French is expensive right now. Everything's expensive right now. But French oak's more expensive, but it has tighter wood grain. And the tighter the grain means that there's more pores. And more pores means that you get more relatively, oxygen. So you can take a wine that needs aging, so it kind of mellows out like your Merlots, your Cabs and stuff like that. When we first process them, and we lay them down, they're still going to be kind of bitter when they're young, and they need time to mature that and soften. And the best way to do that still, after hundreds of years, is to put them in barrels. So we have some Cab Franc here, that's some Blanc Frankish, that's the San Marco. This is actually a very interesting thing we do. This is a new varietal from Italy, the San Marco. They brought it over, our winery brought it over from Italy. It's the newest Vitis vinifera cultivar, one of the newer ones. It's so new that it came over and it was still just like a letter and some numbers, like it wasn't properly named yet. So we named it San Marco. Larry Coya and Bellevue are the only ones, as far as I'm aware of, making it on a commercial level. So we actually have something that no one else in the States has. So that's kind of interesting. So yeah, so the 23 is still maturing in the barrel. We're probably getting pretty close to racking them and getting close to bottling the 23s. Like the Cab Franc in particular is also tasting very good. 23 was a pretty good year out here. Actually, 23 was a good year in Oregon too. But yeah, lot to this. I could yap all day about wine, but I do have some stuff that requires both of my hands. So I will sign off for now. But Jay, thanks for hanging out. Chris, if you're still here, appreciate the time. And everyone, enjoy the rest of your day. Cheers. Oh yeah, anytime.